Hi, welcome back to Gaming for Gamers. So here we are back in London. Over there is the underground station for Charing Cross, which is right next to the River Thames. And there you can see we're on the north bank of the Thames, looking across to the south bank. There is the London Eye, and here is Nor. And here is the topic of today's video, which is, you will not be surprised to know, something else on Dragon Age The Veilguard. So the more time I have, the more I get to see more playthrough and clips of the game. So I have more thoughts, and they're never good thoughts, because I think this game is terrible. So having watched quite a lot of gameplay now in the last week, I realised that it's obviously not a Dragon Age game. The whole style, the art style, I'm not saying the art style is wrong for some game. It looks like it's very high graphical standard, but it's not good for Dragon Age. It doesn't look like a Dragon Age game. If you saw that, you wouldn't think it's Dragon Age at all. And the tone of the game isn't Dragon Age. If it was a completely new franchise, it probably wouldn't do very well anyway, as with many of these things like Concord and that have come out, Forspoken. But it might have had a slightly less critical reception, because making a new franchise, you can start with what you want, whereas if you're following an existing franchise, you have to kind of stick to it. And this is much more of a diversion from the original franchise than, say, Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Odyssey, where you've just got a bigger open world. This is a complete difference in tone and everything. So that's the first thing. Also, it's obvious that they've, in going on with that tone premise, they've obviously really not been sure, or they have been sure, but they've made a really poor judgment in the tone of the game. If you know any of the Dragon Age games, which I assume everyone who played Dragon Age Veilguard who doesn't like it will have done, but that's probably don't like it, I guess. You'll know that they're dark games. They're dark adult games with mature themes, and that's fine, because that's what it is. And again, there's a world for kids games and Disney games and light entertainment games, but Dragon Age isn't that. And like I said, if it was a new franchise, that would be fine, because it would be what it was. But they've kind of tried to make it. I remember seeing the remake of Saints Row, and also Watch Dogs 2 is another game which I couldn't really get into, but I know people like it, where you've got this weird tone of kind of jokey, modern young people who at one moment they're doing something bad, and the next moment they're laughing and joking about it with this kind of cringy humour. And both Watch Dogs 2 had that. I couldn't kind of get the way they were kind of joking and this guy was trying to be a hero, but equally they were going out killing people and then having a laugh about it, and it was a bit of a weird tone of dark and light, and I couldn't really get that. And Saints Row is another good example. So they obviously didn't balance up well how they were going to fit the tone, and they've gone for a kind of almost a PG rated tone, I'd say. It's a game where there's no real darkness, and I've seen a lot of it, more of it now than I have when I made the last video about it. So there's almost no darkness. If you fight a war or fight a battle, it seems that it's all okay afterwards, and if you upset somebody, it will all be okay in a little bit. There's not really any choices that matter, because it's all going to end in the same path, but I'll come to that in a moment. But yeah, it's obviously aimed for not just a modern audience, but a modern audience of Disney watching kids, where they'd be offended by a rude word or slight nudity or a sex scene or people who don't get on. And there's lots of things in the game about feelings, but they all have to have good feelings, which is weird, because again, going back to Dragon Age, not just Dragon Age, all good games, Witcher, Cyberpunk, even Watch Dogs Legion, there's lots of people with bad feelings. You have bad feelings about the enemies, you have bad feelings about each other, people turn on you. But in this game, it seems that everyone has good feelings, or that's the whole point. Everyone has to like each other, and everyone, even if they're a little bit offended, it's about something because you didn't put sugar in my tea. I'm making it up, but that's how I view it from what I saw. And the relationships between the companions, which again, back to Dragon Age Inquisition, which is the game of Dragon Age I know the best, They were all pretty frosty sometimes. Some of them you didn't like them, some of them you didn't have to have with you, all of them actually, except Solus, and a few you did for different missions, but yeah, you didn't have to like them. A lot of them didn't like each other. There was lots of irreconcilable differences between some of them where they wouldn't have got on anyway, and that was good. And that's what life is, I guess. Even at school, life's like that. So kids know that because they have kids in their class that they don't get on with and teachers they don't like. But apparently in this game, everyone has to like each other. All the companions like each other. There's no discord, and everyone is basically a high school kid, but in a kind of very 60s hippie kind of happy high school where everyone is always happy, and if you upset somebody, you just talk about your feelings and then you feel better about it. And it's a bit nauseating, as well as not a Dragon Age game. I'll go back to that choices thing as well, and I know I've seen lots of this and I watched it quite carefully, where the game's obviously quite a linear game in lots of ways. It's not the big open world of the hinterland like there is in Inquisition and lots of the other areas were big open worlds, which is fine, but it's a very linear game with choices that don't really matter from what I've seen, and I've seen quite a bit now. And again, that's not a Dragon Age game. You couldn't play Dragon Age Inquisition as an evil person, but you could certainly make choices that were not going to be nice for some people, and sometimes brutal. You've got to execute people when you're in your throne room. So again, it's not even really an RPG, because it's not really that kind of choice to have. So it's a weird game with weird characters who are all dumbed down to be over nice high school kids in very happy high school relationships, like in a 70s sitcom where nobody really ever falls out. At the end of the episode they all get on again. I don't understand, and this is something I didn't get from watching the bits I've seen of the footage. I don't know why they have the character called Rook as your character, because I don't know why you can't call your character what you want, because Rook just sounds, well, to be honest, it sounds stupid. And if you think about, again, back to Dragon Age games, we were naming our own characters and we could call them what we want. So you could follow your own thought about what you wanted to call your character, or you could follow the kind of law of the game and pick an elvish name or whatever kind of name you wanted. But Rook is just such a weird name, and it's not even a good name. So I don't know why they stuck to that, whereas you could have named your own character or put something more interesting. Rook doesn't, if you said the name Rook, it doesn't really fit with Dragon Age or any game. It's just odd. If they put a name that sounded slightly different, at least it might fit with Dragon Age and you might have identified it as a Dragon Age name, but Rook doesn't even sound like a proper Dragon Age name. So it's weird. So everything about the game is very off. And like I said, if it wasn't a Dragon Age game, I think it would be not very well received. But as a Dragon Age game, it's awful, because like I said, there's a place in the world, and there were plenty of games aimed at kids and aimed at young people without any offensive stuff in them, but you can't take a franchise that's known for being dark and mature and having choices where you can do bad things and and then make it into a kiddies game, which is what basically this is. I don't think anyone would, other than this violence, but there's violence in Pac-Man and there's violence in Mario. So other than the bits of violence with the action, I don't think any parent would not want their kids to watch this based on the content. There's no sex content, there's no nudity, there's no swearing, there's no real arguments or friction between any of the characters. So it's even beyond PG. It's like a game you could show to an 11-year-old, and that's just bad. It's bad for Dragon Age, and it's bad for an adult audience, because adult audiences want adult games, weirdly enough. Anyway, thanks for watching Gaming for Gamers. Till next time, take care for now.